Would you survive World War II, the D-Day beaches? Take the assessment. Would you survive the 6th of June 1944, D-Day? Using statistical evidence, your chances of survival during the D-Day landings is evaluated. If you do survive D-Day, keep watching to see if you survive the whole Normandy campaign. For this evaluation, you will be considered as a fully trained but inexperienced soldier. In addition to your basic training, you will have undertaken additional training, improving your chances of survival. Luck will play a part. You could land on a strongly defended beach or a poorly defended beach. Choose a number between 1 and 10 and stick to it. Using statistics, the odds of your survival will be randomly generated. Conscription or the draft. What were your chances of being called up? If you are British and the number you chose was 3, you are in a reserve occupation or unfit for service. All other numbers and you have been conscripted. In Great Britain, if you were between the ages of 18 and 41, unless you were medically unfit or in a reserved occupation, you were called up. By the end of 1939, just 4 months after the start of World War II, 1,500,000 men had been conscripted. By the end of 1943, 22,750,000 British men and women are in the armed forces, civil defence or doing essential war work. If you are American and the number you chose was 8 or 9, you are in the draft and are called up to fight for your country. In the United States, 50 million Americans from 18 to 45 registered for the draft. 20% of these, 10 million Americans, would be drafted into the armed forces. Our journey to the D-Day beaches starts in early June 1944. It was a rainy day in the south of England, when our camp was locked down and all leave cancelled. I knew something big was happening. I would have liked to have seen Sally before I went off to war. That wasn't going to happen. I sighed and placed a photograph in my breast pocket. We were taken to Portsmouth, where we boarded our ships. Whatever was happening, it was big. It had to be the invasion of Europe, but the sea was too rough, much too rough. I felt sorry for the poor guys in the landing craft. Landing craft had flat bottoms. They were going to have a tough crossing. Our ship anchored off the Isle of Wight. I was right, the sea was too rough, but they didn't take us back to shore. We just sat there, waiting. 24 hours later, our ship started moving. We were told we were going to France to liberate Europe. A feeling of apprehension crept into my stomach. I told myself it wasn't fear, but I didn't get much sleep that night. It wasn't easy climbing down the scramble nets into the landing craft, which pitched and rolled. Our landing craft circled in the rough sea, waiting for others to join us. I'd been trying hard not to get seasick, but the guy next to me was sick. It was the smell. I threw my guts up. All around, warships opened fire on the coast. I could feel the shock waves as huge shells from battleships passed overhead. Suddenly, all the landing craft started heading in the same direction, towards the coast. I could see France now, in the half-light. The battleships seemed to be firing at targets inland and not at the beach defences. Suddenly, screaming like banshees, thousands of rockets roared overhead. To my dismay, they all landed too short. I looked over the side again and could see the beach coming up fast. A shell exploded close to our landing craft, covering us in freezing water. A huge explosion to our left was a direct hit on a landing craft. We were showered in wood, metal and body parts. I crouched down lower as machine gun bullets, sounding like hail hitting a tin roof, struck our landing craft. Our landing craft came to a sudden halt. The ramp dropped and all hell broke out. We charged out. The man to my right was shot through the head. 2 men to my left, hit by mortar fragments, sprawled head first into waist-deep water. Bullets hit the water all around me. Men further back climbed over the sides instead of facing the machine guns firing at the ramp. Most drowned in the deep water. A bullet hit my pack as I took cover behind the hedgehog beach defences. Men were screaming and dying all around as machine guns fired down on us. We were told we could take cover in bomb craters. I desperately looked around for them. There weren't any. My rifle still had on its waterproof cover. I'd not even thought of using it. The only cover was a low sea wall 200 yards away. The beach was a killing zone. I ran. Could I make it to cover? Could I survive? If you are American, you land on Omaha and Utah Beach. If you are Canadian, you land on Juno Beach. If you are British, you land on Sword or Gold Beach. Remember your number. The American beaches. If the number you selected is under a blue figure, you land on Omaha Beach, first wave A Company. If your number is under a green figure, you land on Omaha Beach in the follow-up waves. If your number is under a black figure, you land on Utah Beach. Red figures or part red figures are casualties. At Omaha Beach, 3 days previously, a full-strength, battle-hardened German infantry division, the 352nd, had moved into the area. Omaha had over 2,000 casualties, the highest of all the beaches. By good fortune, at Utah Beach, the landing was on a lightly defended section of beach, 2,000 metres east of the designated landing zone. Utah Beach casualties were 192, the lightest of all the beaches. The Canadian Beach. If the number you selected is below a blue figure, you are in the first wave of the Queen's Own Rifles. If your number is under a black figure, you land away from the strong points or in follow-up waves. Red figures or part red figures are casualties. Juno Beach had high casualties, with 340 men killed, 574 wounded and 47 taken prisoner. Juno Beach had the highest per capita casualty rate of 1 in 18. Omaha had a casualty rate of 1 in 19. The British beaches. If the number you selected is below a red figure, you land on Gold Beach. If it is below a black figure, you land on Sword Beach. Parts of red figures are casualties. These are average figures over the first and follow-up waves. The casualty rate for the British beaches were Sword Beach 683, Gold Beach had the second highest casualties of 1,100. If you weren't in the first or second waves, you probably did survive D-Day, but the war to liberate Europe is only just beginning. You now have to survive and fight your way out of Normandy. The casualty rate for Normandy was 75%. If the number you chose is below a red figure, you are a casualty. If you were a casualty, you want to know if you were killed, wounded or taken prisoner. If you were a casualty, black equals killed, blue equals wounded, green equals taken prisoner. Were you lucky enough to survive D-Day? Do you have a dad, granddad or relative who fought in World War II? Let us know.